Okay, we are getting started. So, hello everybody. My name is Paws. I'm the community manager for MoonCats, and I'm here with.
I am Midnight. The key developer on the project.
Sweet. All right. So, we have basically three sections of stuff and things that we have to go over this presentation. So, we will jump right into section one, which is the fiscal items. And so, as part of our ongoing sort of promise that we made in October to sort of look at all of the costs that are incurred when people just in running MoonCats in general. And so, as part of that, in early December, we changed the way that MoonCats visually are called. And we kind of had two reasons for doing this. One, as the title of this slide, you can probably surmise, we were looking at some potentially malicious calls that were happening. And two, we really did want to continue to optimize how MoonCat data is served.
Yeah, as we continue to monitor more things about the server, the traffic that the centralized API repositories that are needed for handling all the ERC20 lookups that happen for all the marketplaces, the traffic is very spiky. That there's different timings for different marketplaces of when they choose to get updates.
And so one of the costs that will always be ongoing, it never goes away, is MoonCats will always need to pay for some form of RAM. When this optimization is completed, because it is something that we have continued to monitor through January, done some tweaks, we'll continue to monitor moving forward. So as part of Midnight and I taking over MoonCats predominantly, we did already move down one tier of data. Ideally, if we can, our next goal will be to move down another tier just because the more tiers we move down, the way slimmer costs get. And this is something that we're definitely looking at across the board. We want to be slim without being strangled. And so if we can get to that 50 per month tier, awesome. That is the goal we are working towards. If we can't, we'll stay at 225. Ultimately, we're going to do what's best for the health of the project. And some of you have seen this, but we do have code repositories that are available on GitLab, and we will be talking about what's in that code repository like 6 or 7 times throughout this presentation. But really, we do want to encourage people that if you know HTML, JavaScript, if you're comfy in any way with Docker, do check out that repository because there are tasks that do need viewing. More on that later in the presentation. So we also kind of want to take a look at MoonCat funding in general. Sales are always going to be an important part of income, especially for those ongoing costs. That being said, like a lot of projects in the bear market, we are exploring and acting on other revenue streams. And we kind of wanted to give a very broad overhead view of what those potential future expansions will be. Merch is one that we've talked about a lot. But merch, no matter what the source URL is always going to support the MoonCats ecosystem. Another thing that we're looking at as a potential future expansion is going to be a boutique update. And we actually have 2 slides where we're going to be talking about what that update might look like. Potentially an additional collection. I know there has been some sort of questions in the community of, hey, are you ever going to put out another collection? Maybe. But not while the market is kind of max pain. And we never want it to be an expansion of existing collections because that would butt up pretty hard against the promises that Pondaware made to the community. But, and this is where we're starting to throw out some of these hypothetical questions where we haven't made any hard and fast decisions yet, because we do want the community to be part of this conversation. And this is sort of the question that we have broadly is, does the community still feel there should be no further MoonCats? And yes or no in that question also sort of spawns the second question of what constitutes a MoonCat? Because we've had sort of some of these conversations one-on-one with people. And the thing that I realized really quickly is not everybody defines a MoonCat in the same way. And I know that sounds crazy, but believe me, not everybody defines a MoonCat the same way. So this is sort of a sneak peek into what is going through our minds in terms of ensuring that the collection and the project stays sustainable and interesting.
Yeah, and just to reiterate of that, yeah, we as the organizing team want to continue to have the flexibility to make things for the project, and yeah, being able to have a stable source of income for that, and that these are looking at, what if scenarios, what is possible in the system, and what can be, looked to as a stable additional income stream as we're exploring these. So definitely in the what if and exploring possibilities phase for many of those.
We are working on a plushie.
Yeah.
No, no guarantees, just as last time. Mostly because we did some exploration into a plushie. The results that we got were pretty disastrous. There were 3 different people from the community that seemed interested in pursuing creating plushies, and none of those seem to have come to fruition. So we are now exploring that avenue ourselves again.
Yeah, I guess, and that's a good example of like the way that we're approaching these as a team, of finding the opportunities where it's, where we can do these explorations by not putting, a whole bunch of time, effort, and funds into trying it. Whereas, yeah, our first try looking into a plushie option of, yeah, trying a first design and seeing how that goes. And if that goes well, then we could expand that with others. It's great that we found a vendor that's willing to, do individual designs rather than needing to, come up with multiple designs or have, a whole suite of merch and put down the funds for pre-production for all of them before we can even see if it's going to be successful. So we are trying things and dabbling, and then we'll start sharing those with the community to try those out and see which ones have the abilities to keep going further.
All right. Any questions about how we're handling our ongoing costs, any potential funding avenues? All right. So it looks like no questions immediately, so we will move on. One of the things that we are potentially looking at, and again, this is mostly we are putting together our thoughts into slides so that all of you can see where our sort of gray matter has been mulching. And if people have other ideas, we want to hear those. There are 4 improvements that will not require an entire overhaul of the boutique.
Oh, yeah, in the context of like, these are things that we've like heard talked about, and yes, that we've been thinking about as well. These ones fit into not an entire overhaul possibility.
Which is why we call it the 1.5 boutique as opposed to like a fully re-realized boutique. This tends to be the request that we get the most, particularly from the artist designing accessories. Hey, can you make an import tool that brings in existing images?
And that would definitely be mainly on the front end, and that could definitely be added in for the current infrastructure without overhaul.
A lot of people have asked for, hey, can I make a wish list? Can I identify accessories that I feel are the best quality ones on the boutique? Can I, show my love towards an artist? And the answer is yes, there is a favorite system that exists now. The last couple of times we have brought it up as a potential tool, there hasn't been a ton of interest, but we do want people to know it exists and that we are interested in finding more robust uses that the community will find useful. Flags for categories. This is something that we had planned from all the way back to long before the boutique ever launched. And this is finally something that is ongoing now. And these categories are being defined in terms of what goes into those buckets in conjunction with the meow. So we basically came to the meow. We said, hey, we have categorized everything that obfuscates 4 qualities of a MoonCat. There are still accessories that people in the community seem really unsatisfied with that obfuscate 3 aspects of a MoonCat. And so the meow went through, found a whole bunch of those, voted for it internally, threw it out to the community in meow requests of, hey, are there any that we miss that you feel should be costumes? We are currently working on, I want to just make sure that I don't disrupt the presentation while I do this. We are looking at backgrounds and props at the moment because those are categorizations that Metaverses, particularly World Wide Web, has asked us to make. And so that is making good on a promise that we have made in the past. But those are categorizations that are ongoing now. So contact your local Meows member if you have strong feelings about a particular accessory. And last of the 4 that we see requested in the community is a palette to a web UI. It is kind of challenging to add palettes to accessories at the moment. It does need to be something that you make after the accessory. That whole process of adding those palettes is a little dense. And so we could be taking some time to make that much more streamlined. Other changes, and we know that there has been a fair few that have been tossed around, will require pretty much an entirely new system. And so we do want to lay out what we would view as a boutique 2.0. And again, these are specifically things that community members have asked for, but would require really an entirely new smart contract to act on. And so if we ever do a boutique 2.0, the first thing that we're going to have to do is move all existing accessories to that new contract. With a new smart contract, we could allow accessories to be traded outside of a MoonCat, which would open up secondary royalties to artists who create accessories, as well as the MoonCat team. One of the other things that we could do would be to bring in additional colors. However, there is a trade-off to that, which is minting costs would be higher for all accessories. And mostly we just want people to know that we are seeing these conversations happening.
Yeah, so just wanting to put it in the context of, yeah, we definitely see these suggestions, and they would be put into this sort of a category, which is something that would still be a possibility, but is a much further in the future possibility, and possibly something that would come even after a Boutique 1.5 sort of overhaul. That, yeah, it's an even further distant sort of thing and a more complex thing to do. Not to say that we can't start by having those conversations and figure out what people would want with that sort of a context, but yeah, putting in the proper scope of realizing it's a much further out sort of a goal.
And in the grand scheme of things, Boutique 2.0 isn't something that Midnight and I could do on our own. And there's the but, the weekly cat but. We don't have the bandwidth to do this and all of the other things that the community is asking us for. And so we do want people to understand that a boutique 2.0 is probably a long-term goal, and potentially something that we are looking at the Meow to lead. But we bring it up now as part of a MoonCat Monday presentation because we really do need community input for what this project will look like. And that shapes how we design a bounty. Because the nice thing about trimming down a lot of those ongoing costs means all of a sudden we have money that we can put towards other aspects of the ecosystem. So there is method to our madness. All right, loot prints for MoonCats. And this is just a reality that I think almost everybody here in the audience on Discord understands. Loot prints for MoonCats were cool at the start, and then marketplace contracts became much more sophisticated and multi-layered, and loot prints broke. We did always intend to move loot prints from a blueprint style mechanic to actual spaceships. And to potentially even have spaceships designed by multiple artists as sort of a shipyard boutique concept. Obviously, the loot print breaking has made this way more urgent. And so we do want to give people a little bit of a feeling of what this process will look like, which is the jump port, which is our staking contract, as well as our portals out to different layer 2 networks and experiences and ecosystems. The jump port will begin to include a shipyard portal. There will be no cost to convert your loot print in the same way that there is no cost to wrap a MoonCat. You just pay gas. And it'll be a simple process. Feed a loot print in, get a spaceship back. But the one thing we do want people to understand is this process will be one way only, which I think will make sense to most people because loot prints are broken and they need to get fixed. And this is how that happens. And for those of you who didn't know, Midnight was actually the person who designed the loot print for MoonCat's artwork. And so potentially Midnight could continue to design the first run of spaceships after the priority asks that we have on the GitHub are dealt with. And again, more on this later. Or the community members could organize and design those spaceships. And if you are interested in being a designer, reach out to me. If you are interested in sponsoring a bounty so that we could pay an artist and you have an artist in mind and you know what they charge and you would know what their timeline is like, reach out to me. So, all right, so some of this is going to be retread for some of you that have been to multiple MoonCat Mondays. I have a really good anecdote to tell people because when we look at successful projects, do marketing, it is predominantly community members. Because we really do feel like paid followers and influencers create temporary pump bubbles and don't create consistent long-term value. Also, marketing agencies are terrible to communicate with. And here is my anecdote. Over the weekend, starting I think on Thursday or Friday, someone DM'd us and they were someone that had quite a number of followers. They had followers that were part of the MoonCats community that I recognized the name, and they were like, hey, yo, let's talk. And it's like, all right, that kind of DM on Twitter probably ends in nothing that I want to have anything to do with, but sure, let's have the conversation. And I was like, you know, what's up? And they were like, hey, we are a marketing agency. These are the things that we do. And I said to them, do you have any experience with a pre-ERC 721 project? And their response back was, oh, sorry, we don't deal with projects that aren't launched yet, but good luck with that. So that was, that is pretty much on par with a lot of the marketing people that we talk to. They just have no experience with Um, they just really have no experience with historical projects. And so know that we are looking for marketing angles. We're just not having a lot of success. So, and just like the conversation that I had this weekend, basically what these marketing agencies or marketing individuals offer us is shillers, influencers, bot armies, and then, oh, can we also have 10 MoonCats for a giveaway? Not realizing that, this isn't Solana. And the NFTs are worth more than $7 each. So, we continue to look at the way really successful projects do marketing, and overwhelmingly it's community members with some small amount of paid followers and influencers that create temporary pump bubbles. That being said, this is something that I'm going to pound on a lot, and I'm sure some of you are very tired of me saying this, is MoonCats are stable cats. We have really held our floor in a way that modern projects that get pumped by these influencers just don't. And so, yeah, we're down from all-time high, but we're also stable. And to me, that means a lot. And, our community members, which is really why, and of course, our very tongue-in-cheek top-tier development team. So we have 16,500 Discord members, and about 1,000 of those are tagged as MoonCat owners. And so here is my challenge to you once again. If even half of those owners could retweet or tweet once a week with hashtag MoonCats, it would massively increase our reach. And it is marketing that it is fast and free. And even it's fast and free for all of you too. So that's all. We have a tweets to retweet channel. If you don't feel particularly, engaged to write your own tweets, just RT stuff that shows up there. That's helpful. All right. And we had 2 collabs this month. The first one is the AI art collab. And I do want to take a moment to sort of answer the question that we get a lot of from newer community members, which is, how do you decide on allow list opportunities? And really what our simple question is does this enrich the value of owning a MoonCat? Based on the community sentiment, we turn away almost all of the allow list collabs that come to us, particularly because, and I talked about this last time we did as a MoonCat Monday, the grind for your whitelist model has kind of reared its ugly head again. And I think we've seen that a lot in January. And I'm just over it. I'm not subjecting community members to that. And so all of the allow lists for the AI art collab have been claimed. They do have a minting date coming up next week, I believe. The MoonCats trait is actually scattered all throughout the collection. So allow list people aren't guaranteed to get it, which means if you are interested in the public mint or in the secondary market, you still might be able to snag a MoonCats trait. On the other side of the coin is the Minty Teddy collaboration. We will be closing allow lists for Minted Teddy in about 11 hours from now. There are 100 allow list slots for MoonCat owners, and all 100 slots receive one of the 4 MoonCat designs. And you can actually see those on the pre-mint page. There will also be 10 MoonCats found in the general mint, and just one of one MoonCats. Turns out that they actually know the meaning of one of ones. So I will be as part of these 2 collabs announcing when their mintings are live. For Minted Teddy, that begins January 29th, and MoonCats are part of that early minting wave. So if you are signed up for this allow list or the OXAI allow list, just watch the announcements and I will let people know when minting is live. Any questions about loot prints, about collaborations, about marketing before I move on.
Looks like I see Lasagna having the one question on, would there be, back to the loot print conversion idea, would there be randomization with converting, as we mentioned, like multiple art ideas, like an unopened pack of cards? That's something that is not set in stone yet. If people prefer that as a method of picking art, that's something that could be considered. The other model that's being spec'd out would be the idea that if there are different artists who have presented different ways of visualizing these, of like, yes, a 5-bay mech, if I create my own midnight version of what I think a MoonCat 5-bay mech looks like, and if we get Beeple to make a interpretation of a 5-bay mech, and you happen to like Beeple's more than mine, that you as an owner could pick between them. But yeah, the possibility of, if the visuals for the ships are in packs, that could be something to consider.
Sorry, I just had to take a drink of water there. So part 2 is sort of looking at our developmental priorities, and I sort of call this section the "We Hear You" section, and we make things, because we do want people to know that even if we aren't immediately responding on Twitter, on Discord, on the places that you're talking, we are reading it all. We are having a lot of conversations. Even if it isn't immediately evident. And so we will be going over some of the things that we are in the process of making, or that we have seen the community ask for. And the first one is the video series. So this is something that we have been working on for about half a year at this point. And basically, this is a production house that focuses on video marketing. They are going to be creating some short MoonCat videos. These videos will cover the history of the project, where it has been, and where it is going, because the reality is MoonCats will always be more complex than a modern NFT, but we definitely want to look at as many ways as possible to break down those barriers for introduction. We had voice actor selection, and that was really fun. And we had storyboard finalizing, and that was really interesting. There was some delays in animation, thanks COVID. But it is something that we are working. I think we have a meeting like this week or early next week to go over some of the very last details.
Yep. Yeah. So we should be in like T-minus. We're in weeks and should shortly be in days away from us as a team being able to see final versions of this.
Very excited. And so we are definitely looking at doing a preview for potentially Genesis owners, potentially MoonCat owners. If you haven't tagged up as a MoonCat owner yet, be sure to hit up Collab Landroid to get that role. If you own a Genesis and we have somehow missed you, go ahead and nudge any of the moderators and we will get you tagged. That is a manual tagging. And we are actually going to be talking about expanding roles in the Discord later in the presentation. So, Jumpport. The L2 contracts, which move loot prints and other MoonCat ecosystem items to L2s, those are now sealed. So, I know some of you in the audience here on Discord did help us test those. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It means a lot that you took the time to do that. And the source code is verified and pinned in the GravBall channel. So if you want to check that out, go ahead. Other portals that we are meandering towards in the nearish future, a boutique portal. This is a frequent community request. The ability to buy accessories while jumped or staked in, the ability to gift accessories to MoonCats that are not yours but in the jump port, adding and removing accessories, donning and doffing your swag. Obviously, there's going to be a GravBall portal coming, and that is our play-to-play game. As the term has been starting to be adopted. The loot print to spaceship portal that we talked about. And again, I do want to reiterate that that is a one-way event. And mostly at this point, we want to get a feeling for what ports people feel are the most urgent. What ports out of the jump port do you feel we are missing? And so you can always drop down into the Gravball and Lootprint channel. You can drop those into MoonCat Mondays. This is going to be an ongoing conversation because the jump port is sort of our long-term development of the ecosystem. So no rush for those, but the more feedback we get, the better. Yeah. And that's going to be a theme.
Oh, sure. And code-wise for this is, so the context of this, as I've been planning for these sort of ideas, that right now there's not, this is one of the repositories that's not yet open sourced, but that's planned by me for getting some of these infrastructure seed ideas out there that can be then collaborated on with other developers. And as I see a couple people, or Lasagna commenting on for that boutique idea of the gifting accessories. And this is a showcase of why we wanted the jump port in the first place as a tool that allows doing things that could be modifications to previous contracts that weren't possible previously, like the original accessories contract, which has the boutique logic built in, the idea of who owns and who's allowed to buy an accessory. It does not have the ability for gifting. We wanted to make sure that it was, or someone to be able to say, I as an owner of a MoonCat definitely want this accessory. If someone were to buy it for me, I would enjoy it. I would not be offended. We know that people have some strong preferences on which accessories they think are good versus not. We wanted to make sure with the original accessories contract that no one would end up with an accessory that they didn't want or didn't like on their MoonCat, or in their MoonCat's wardrobe even. Having the ability to augment that, a portal could do that, since when a MoonCat is in the jump port, then the jump port is technically the owner of the MoonCat from the purposes of the blockchain. And so we can do more complex things like using message signatures to indicate, hey, this is all right if someone wanted to buy me the thing. The same as on a marketplace. If a current owner says, hey, it would be all right if someone gave me 5 ETH for my MoonCat, I would be willing to do that. A message signature indicating they're open to that. We could do a very similar thing of, hey, I'd be open for someone gifting me a accessory.
You will not be able to send accessories to MoonCats that have not specifically asked for them. Right. Sorry to ruin Bevall's fun. And of course, Gravball. Gravball is on the near-term radar, and I know that we've talked about it being on the near-term radar for a while, but we do want people to understand that when we are asked to intervene for more urgent issues, Gravball gets pushed back. And that would be true even if we were working full-time paid on MoonCats 40 hours a week. When stuff comes up, like the accessory vote and the API update, those things get put to the front of the line. Those initial gameplay smart contracts that we've done some MoonCat Monday presentations about in the past, which is sort of touching upon how you direct your cats and how they may or may not listen to you, and how the ship blueprint dictates the way that they play on the field. All of that stuff, those smart contracts are more or less done and internally verified. One of the conversations that we're going to have with the MoonCats community as a whole is going to be a utility versus a financial impact, because we sort of need to have a conversation that breaks down. We can make the game fun, or we can make the game give us money. Us as in the MoonCats team that we then turn around and reinvest into the MoonCats ecosystem. We lean towards utility and fun being the primary driver of Gravball, and we do think that that's the right decision to make, but we also want people to understand why we're making that decision And so know that that is a conversation that is going to be happening. These gameplay smart contracts aren't published because we do still want the priority in terms of Gravball to be the loot print conversion. And as a general reminder, for beta testing Gravball, we will be opting in MoonCats that have a loot print and a MoonCat pop in their purse. And if you have your MoonCat jumped into the jump port already, you can still send them things like a loot print and a MoonCat pop. You can actually send purse items to any MoonCat, including those inside the jump port, including those that don't belong to you. Although, that is limited to things inside of the MoonCats ecosystem. So sorry, you can't just send crypto dick butts and crypto TDs to everybody. Another thing that we see people talking about semi-regularly is MoonCat Pop vending machines. And so for those of you who are a little bit newer to the MoonCats ecosystem, vending machines are your pass into the... Sorry, I'm seeing people talk about crypto dick butts now. Mistakes have been made. MoonCat Pop vending machines are your golden ticket into the MoonCats DAO, which is called the Meow. And so at the moment, there are 84 machines in total. So there are at most 84 members of the DAO. We do see some trickled down interest from the community, but we really need to get a more solidified idea of the interest in these, which is mostly making sure that people actually want to buy a MoonCat Pop vending machine that has their specific MoonCat on it that they purchase for 1 ETH versus picking up a MoonCat Pop machine that is on the market now, but that cannot be changed and has someone else's MoonCat on it, but would still get you entry into the Meow. And so that is, again, something that we're probably going to be having a much longer conversation about over a period of time, and we'll probably set aside a channel for it, just so that we get everybody's feelings on this, even people that can't be here today. And, if these community-led votes continue to be successful, we are definitely interested in opening up more slots in the Meow, which is minting more MoonCat Pop vending machines. That being said, Brand Name here is our partner in that project, and we will need to have clear indication from them that they are committed to fulfilling their requirements and building those assets. And more on those community votes. Next slide. And so this is sort of part 3, which I love this expression. Colton is the one that sort of tuned me into this, the Do-Ocracy of MoonCats. And this is stuff that you as the community are working on. And so, the question that everybody has, no matter if you're a MoonCat holder, if you're inside of crypto and in general, is, can a DAO be successful? And there are both historical NFTs and modern NFT DAOs, and we see them often having the same successes, often having the same pitfalls that they run into. And so we want to make sure that if there is something being done right, if there is something being done wrong, we take those under consideration and try to either emulate the good things or avoid the bad things. And so, regardless of the accessories vote outcome, as a leadership team, we really view this as another gauge for how active the community is. And we also want people to understand when we ask questions like, what is the measure of a DAO's success? We sort of have these two outlying percentages in mind, which is 2% is the response rate for cold calling. 60% is the voter turnout in a typical American federal election. And how does that compare to the accessories vote that is going on right now? As of yesterday, when we finalized these slides, 3% of eligible wallets had voted. 15% of eligible MoonCats have voted. And so we are above cold calling, yay, below voter turnout for the typical American federal election, not as yay. And so those are the two values that we see are as absolutely bottom basement. We really need to get above this low bar. And hey, it would be really nice if we hit this, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I just wanted to reiterate that as well. Of these are the numbers that I personally have been tracking. That I've been so happy to see that when the community was organizing this vote, that they chose to set a quorum limit, that a minimum threshold for actionability. And I'm so happy that it was set above what the previous vote was, and I'm so happy that that quorum was hit so fast, and that it's continuing to have more people come in. Those are all wonderful things, and I'm glad that it has cleared at the very least the cold calling route. That idea of, hey, if you're just asked randomly by some person that you're unfamiliar with, will you respond to it? It's great that we're above that. And the question of this brave new world that we're in, of trying to figure out what does it mean to be part of Web3, what does it mean to be part of a DAO, where the people are synonymous, that, or they're trying to have different weights, or yeah, that's the differences between a DAO and a typical board or council vote, where people are known, is also that people have different vote weights. That this vote was decided to weight on the number of MoonCats owned, and so yeah, the difference between how we can see number of wallets versus number of MoonCats weighted for how many large owners are voting versus not. Um, these are the numbers that I think are most interesting to see. Are people being active? And regardless of, or irregardless of, if your side, which result ends up being the larger outcome, if people are active, that if we're asking people to do a free thing, will they would they even do so? I'm glad to see that there's a bunch that are doing so. Um, Though looking at the number of eligible wallets as somewhat synonymous with number of people, assuming that the wallet is the owner, the human owner, as opposed to the number of MoonCats that's on there, that 3% being very close to 2%, I would love to see that continue to increase and very clearly separate from that 2% in the next couple of weeks as the vote continues.
And to Play Nice's point that many Mooncats are being held on cold wallets that don't want to sign into Snapshot, yes. Lessons are constantly being learned, and we never feel like a lesson learned is a bad thing. We feel like the more lessons that we learn, the better that we can shape the future. We took a snapshot that was like a month before the actual vote went down, and then Lasagna Fund distributed coins based off of that. There was no good way to get people that had their MoonCats in cold wallets to be sort of get their voice heard. And so these are all like lessons that we're going to sit down after all this is said and done and say, all right, here are the X number of issues that we ran into when we did this vote. What are our potential solutions for those? So definitely sort of put a pin in that feedback, because we are going to ask for that feedback, and we are definitely taking those feedback notes seriously. But to give you an idea of where we are looking for, these numbers don't matter for this vote. We're not going to, say this vote isn't valid because you haven't met these. That is not our intent at all. We want these two numbers to be gradual building goals, which is as we continue to have votes on important parts of the ecosystem, this is where we expect the numbers to be long term.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, just and yeah, where I'm feeling, as an organizing team, to know, you know, that gut feeling of, is the community active? Is the community, there, that we are getting a representative slice, yeah, that's where thinking if there's at least 10% of eligible wallets was kind of the gut feel of, yeah, then that's a representative, a above the minimum, and definitely representative into that territory.
Oh, yes, and I stand corrected. Lasagna Fund did not distribute the coins. Katoshi Pawamoto did. So, and yeah, the one thing that we want people to understand is, why do we care if it's 10 people voting or 100 people voting or 1,000 people voting? And just to echo what something Midnight said early in the presentation is, if no one in the community is committed enough to do a free thing, we get worried that they can't do anything that is more complex, more important than the free fest thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and the nice thing is we have been proved everything that we expected to come out of this vote. The results have totally blown us out of the water. We are like Elaine doing the happy dance in the Seinfeld apartment.
Yeah, it has been wonderful to see. Yeah, again, tagging back to how we labeled this section of the Do-Ocracy, and that idea of, yeah, we want to help facilitate as an organizing team, as a smaller organizing team. The best way that we can be effective is to help facilitate people, help organize, and be the sort of hub of the hub and spoke communication, making sure that people who wish to do something are able to organize and do something. And these sort of ideas, again, tagging to we're in this brave new world of Web3, of people wanting to be having an ownership stake, having a importance in these ongoings, in these projects, and that's why kind of using the example of the American federal elections of that's an example of a free thing that is important, of who you are represented by. That do you even do a free important thing? And that, yeah, these are examples of, we're trying this in this new space, and working towards, can we be trusting that we are getting good, consistent results for important things, and starting with any sorts of votes and giving people the time to respond to it is good ways to build to that.
So help us help you, help the DAO help you. And, we can't say this enough. Thank you, everybody, for participating. It means a lot. All right. And so what is that accessory vote that is underway now? It started January 13th. It is going to end February 13th, as we have met the quorum. And so you are basically going to have 3 options for what you can vote when you go to the snapshot. And accessories on is the status quo as it is today, which is accessories stay on in all of the places they are now, and we continue to work with the Meow to build that structured vetting system. Accessories off is exactly that. Accessories get turned off everywhere except locations that Midnight and I directly control as the MoonCats team. In this point, it is notably the purse and photo booth. We did have a new API that we deployed on January 6th, 2023, and that does have an accessorized call. With the sort of other side of that coin is apps need to opt into using it. And while we want to be optimistic and we have reached out to a lot of our partners already, we also want to be honest that it is looking at the moment like most will not. And there are connections that we haven't made yet. For example, at most of the sort of gallery style presentation metaverses. So if you know someone at, say, On Cyber as part of their actual development team that you can connect us to, please reach out to me. We would love to make that connection. But we do want people to understand that we are continuing to have these conversations. So the 3 people that we can talk about reaching out to right now is, we did reach out to the World Wide Web team. They did say that including the accessories API call was going to be a long-term goal. And the impression that I got is probably not this year. We did reach out to Isotile because we all love having our MoonCats walking around in 3D. We love having them displayed on the wall and on easels. They are considering how they might be able to use the additional API endpoints. and we don't have a final answer from them yet. Liquid Lands we did reach out to, and Dave has basically said, I don't have the bandwidth to do unique API endpoints in 2023. Ask me again later this year. And so know that these are things that we are reaching out to and that we are making our best effort to accommodate them using our API. Mass community pressure might be helpful in some of these situations, although we really do want people to understand that community pressure doesn't mean harass creators. And so, if you have a distinct interest in seeing Isotile displaying accessories even after they're turned off, Captain DeFi is on our Discord. There is an Isotile role that you can find and tag people with. But be respectful. Understand that MoonCats are not the primary development priority for any of these projects. Making their own cool thing is their priority, and we are guests in their house.
Sure. And also on that line of like an angle that if people are aware of examples that this could help, obviously the MoonCats having accessories is a unique feature of NFTs. However, there are some other NFTs, or if you know of NFT projects that have that concept of multiple visuals per each token, of each token potentially being able to look like different things. If there are many collections, or if there's another collection that we could band together with that also was trying to get multiple views or being able to see it different ways under different circumstances, being able to set a standard or being able to create something that works for multiple collections would be more likely to go over with some of these larger projects if they don't have to do custom work for just MoonCats, if they can do something that works across the board for projects that might be also needing it. So if you're aware of those, that can also be an opportunity that we can pursue if we can help facilitate those communications.
And so in regards to what you're saying, Jake, where there's like 1,000 MoonCats in cold storage that individuals have said they don't want to vote for security purposes, 100% legit. We knew that there were going to be some people that weren't going to be comfortable voting the way that we had it set up, but we need to know why they're not comfortable so that we can find solutions to their specific problems. The last option you have in the community vote is abstain. And, the simple answer here is the more information we have, the more confident we are in the full community's feelings. Abstain basically came about because quite a number of people came to me and said, I don't have really strong feelings either way on this particular issue, but I want to vote. What do I vote for? Is there going to be an abstain? And so that's why we ended up including it. And if it ends up being a non-relevant piece of information, we can always reconsider whether we're going to include it moving forward. So abstain is definitely in the use it or lose it category for those of you that came to me and said, I want to vote, but don't know where I stand in terms of off and on. And I'm watching for you. Another thing that we see getting some pretty regular interest is, hey, how do I name acclimated MoonCats? Because the answer is you can't name acclimated MoonCats. You have to unwrap them. So Fireside has created a repository with a tool for naming MoonCats that are inside of the acclimated wrapper, which would basically eliminate manually unwrapping and rewrapping a MoonCat, which is a couple of contract calls that you have to do. They have not provided a front end for this smart contract, and the smart contract has not been audited. But once those two pieces have been done, ideally we would roll this into the new and improved Amalgam chain station that we've talked about a lot, which is you connect your wallet once and you're able to access the jump port, the purse, the boutique, the photo booth, all of these things, MoonCat purchasing and managing your MoonCat pop. All of these things have sort of disparate wallet logins because they were created with different mentalities and processes. We do want them all to fall under that single chain station login wallet connection. Sorry, I'm using Web 2 nomenclature there. But we do want Midnight's priority asks to be completed before we jump super hard into this amalgam chain station development. More on that later. And so with this, we have 2 open-ended questions for the community, maybe 3. And sort of question number 1, which is 2 questions in itself, which is, are there community members who have the time or skills to complete this task? Or are there community members interested in setting up a bounty for this work? So you are, like me, I am not a programmer. I don't want to interact with a contract manually. I'm terrified that I'm going to royally screw something up and lose my MoonCat forever, even though there's like a 0 chance of that happening. But like someone like me would probably be interested in putting money towards a bounty or even a MoonCat or some sort of other resource that rewards the person that completes this task. We are definitely looking at putting out those bounties, both from our end and from the community end. And also the second half of that question is, where does this fit in terms of community interest and priority? We see interest in naming MoonCats as a very spiky interest. So like there have been 4 MoonCats that have been named this week, which means there were enough people that were interested and capable of manual contract interactions that they did it. If there was an easier way to do it, would there be 4 or would there be more? We have no idea. So if you are interested in seeing the naming acclimated MoonCats tool, James has put the code repository for it. It's in a GitHub on the Discord server before, but honestly, you could just tag him and ask for it again. All right, a lookup bot. Obviously, this has been a long-running request, which is basically, some sort of exclamation mark 286, and that would bring up the statistics for MoonCat 286. And there is actually one underway. Control R and some other people have one of these partially completed. Basically, they presented it to us in, I believe, November, and Midnight came back to them with some tweaks that we have requested as a team. And that is where we're at right now. So if you, again, have interest in seeing this completed, if you have programming wherewithal, if you have some other skill that you feel would be useful for this, Control R, potentially MoonCat Maxi, those would be your 2 contact points for that. Discord roles. And this is something that I hinted at. The bot that we use right now, and even if we were to move to our other bot that we potentially have access to, which is Vulcan, don't have a good way of looking at metadata inside of an NFT. It just checks if you have an NFT. And so Colton and a couple of other people have talked about additional Discord roles, which would be like a Pink Panther owner, a Garfield owner, a Cheshi owner, someone who owns a 2017, someone who owns, a complete set, which would be one MoonCat from all of the years, et cetera, et cetera. This sort of level of Discord role management, I just do not have the bandwidth for myself. But we are happy to promote someone who wants to take ownership of a role hander outer position. And so if you are interested in helping shape this is something that requires no programming, because most of the programming work that is needed has been done by people who know how to program. And so we do have a new Ask the Team forum. And there is a thread in there, which I believe is called Discord Roles. And if you pop into that, you will be able, Discord badges. If you pop into that thread, you will be able to jump into the conversation. Those threads don't stay active unless you've said something in them. So keep that in mind. If you are interested in having more of that conversation, just say something in that thread so that it stays active in your Discord. All right. And last but not least, we have talked about this throughout the presentation, but we have a GitHub code repository. It has 4 items that Midnight has identified as good first issues. This will require a developmental environment setup, probably Docker. But really, we view completing these 4 tasks as the walk before you run mindset. We really want these to be viewed as stepping stones for the community to take ownership of before we start assigning more complicated tasks. And we do definitely have an idea of what comes next, which is once we have these 4 things addressed, loop print migration is next. And the loop print migration is going to require a multitude of potential skills: programming, art, UI and UX design, writing. And so we know that there is some interest in people working on some of these things. And so know that that is coming down the pipe. And I do want to give a thank you. So 2 people did jump into the GitHub and make contributions. So the first one is Beautiful, who submitted a revision to the OS dynamic view, and Lasagna Fund and the broader Meow have both done quite a bit of work in accessory classifications, and Lasagna Fund is the one who actually is doing the submissions for those. So everybody be sure to say thank you to Beautiful Data and to Lasagna Fund, because they have done work for you.
Yes, and yeah, just to reiterate on the walk before you run, the issues that are in, or they're, for those who aren't developers, they are tagged as issues. That's just a programmer speak for something needing to be done. And the ones that are tagged currently as good first issues, they are ones that, the walk before you run idea of showing, is your development environment set up? Get familiar with the process, get me familiar with you of what are you contributing, and getting a process of getting that in. Some of the changes, we're also looking for like text copy, as we're, as mentioned, the chain station idea of like a merging together of a lot of the individual tools that MoonCats have had. A lot of that will be, or a decent portion of that will be moving some of the text content over and or refactoring the text content. And so if you are skilled in copywriting, or even proofreading, also as Lasagna has pointed out, when you're just writing text into the code repositories, it is possible to do that directly through the code interface, or rather the GitLab interface rather, has the ability for you to work within just your web browser window to work on these files. And for the ones that are mainly text updates, you could work on it right within your web browser, and you don't actually need a development environment if you're contributing text copy updates to these various repositories. The minor good first issues ones that are currently there are some simple React-based UI ones that are needed for like creating this first framework of getting an interface for the chain station interface. And so if you are familiar with React or JavaScript in general, I'd be happy to help you walk through getting Docker set up, and we can get those worked upon.
Yeah, and for if you have some programming knowledge and expertise, but don't feel like you're quite up to the point of being able to work on these issues and need some pair programming time, that is potentially something that Midnight could offer, but it is going to have to be on his schedule. So understand that it won't be 9 to 5. That will be an evening and weekends sort of issue, which I know is sometimes challenging on our Discord because we are very much an international community and a lot of you just hang out here during your workday. For those of you in North America. Also, if you are not a programmer at all and you like words, we still need help from you. There is, under the community tab in the Discord, a channel called Website Updates. And there are several threads under the website updates where we are looking for new words. So feel free to check that out. All right. Thanks, everyone. And as always, we are a fur, not floor community. And I want to say thank you for everybody who came here today. Thank you to everybody who is going to watch this presentation on YouTube. Is there any questions for anything that we brought up, both as part of the Do-Ocracy of MoonCats or as part of the broader MoonCats ecosystem? Because now you have our attention.
I do see one question from Brick Router on can we use Gitcoin, which that was in the context of, I think, talking about either setting bounties for different features, of creating incentives for some of these features to get created by the broader community. For those who are not familiar, I believe he's referring to Gitcoin grants as a tool that is a great tool for getting funding to the broader ecosystem. From my experience working with Gitcoin grants, that program is mainly focused on, quote, public goods, services that are trying to create systems for the broader community. These features being ones that mainly would only benefit MoonCat owners. I don't know if that would fit within their ecosystem of allowing it to be a target for a Gitcoin grant. So I'm not sure if that would be a good fit for that, though. If there were ecosystems like that were not focused on public goods, but were focused on individual projects like we are, that could definitely be something to consider.
They might like the cats, Brooks.
Oh, indeed.
Yeah, no, and never feel like it's bad to throw out an idea like that, even if we say no, because, Brick Router might come to us in 2 days and go, haha, you thought it was for public goods only, but they have a program for private stuff too, and slam down a link in front of us, and we'll suddenly go, oh, okay, this is awesome. So
yes, those are the things that we love to put out feelers for and reach out to. Why part of the reason why we maintain as the core team, the main domains and email addresses that we can reach out and be an official contact point to start those conversations. Let's see, I didn't see any in the chat thread, or rather the thread associated with the video. Any others in the other channels?
I have gotten a big old stack of DMs while we have been in this presentation, which I am fairly certain will be regarding this presentation, but because they are DMs, I don't want to change over my screen to look at them, so I will address those after the presentation.
Sounds good.
And as always, if you end up going to sleep tonight and waking up with like the Giga Chad of MoonCat brain ideas, and you're like, I gotta tell the team about this. Don't wait for the next MoonCat Monday. Like, just tell us. We are always open to feedback and ideas. All right. With that, I think we are going to wrap up this presentation. So, meow meow. Thank you, everybody, again. And we will see you for the next MoonCat Monday. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can always pop over to discord.gg/mooncats and join our community and watch these presentations live. So thanks all. See you on the Discord.
Thanks, everyone.